and welcome to Overdrive. We are in Japan at the moment. We are at the Fuji Speedway driving a bunch of Lexus cars. Some of them are right here. So what you see here is the GX followed by the LBX and the third one is the LM. Now there are going to be reviews of these vehicles that I'll post separately for the GX and the LBX primarily, and a little bit of the LM as well. The LM is something that my colleague Tuhin has already driven. We've put up that review, but this is the LM 500H. But for now, I'm going to concentrate on the GX in this particular video. So the GX is not a new model name. It has existed for a while. In fact, the previous generation of the GX was around for 14 years, but it never came to India. It was primarily an American model, but now the new GX is a global model. That is not what the G stands for. The GX is Grand Crossover. That is essentially what the name is, but you can also call it a global crossover for Lexus because it is now going to go to different markets. Now in August this year, Toyota showed the new Land Cruiser 250, right? And we all went bonkers about it. I was particularly in love with the design the moment I saw it. Now that particular car is what gives this car its underpinnings. So the GX is based on the J250 Land Cruiser. You can also see similar color options here, but of course there is that Lexus design theme, the sharp Lexus design theme that you get all across the car. So while the Land Cruiser has the round headlights, this one has the typical swept back Lexus headlights. You also have those spear shaped DRLs that look really good. And then the spindle grille, this is the newer take on it. We've also seen it on the LX. So that design theme also filters down to the GX. So it's not as exaggerated, not as detailed as some of the previous generation models, but that shape is still retained, and I think it looks really good. You also see the retro colors, again inspired from the Land Cruiser 250. So you see this shade of brown, beige, whatever you want to call it. There is going to be the sky blue as well, and I think it all looks really nice. You see below the headlights, you see these extensions. They look quite nice from a distance, and if you look down below, you have the fog lamps and the cornering lamps. So these two are visible quite nicely. Then you look at the face, that grille is prominent. You have the vents down below, and then there is the big skid pad. Move over to the side and you see these chunky wheels. Now this is going to be the off-road trim. So these are 33-inch wheels that you see here. That's the diameter including the tire. And these are off-road tires. These are 265 section with 18-inch rims. Now this is a body-on-frame chassis. The chassis comes from the Toyota Tundra, the Toyota Land Cruiser, like I said, so it's shared between these vehicles, and that is what gives it those amazing off-road credentials. I particularly like the design of the wheel arches as well. The angular wheel arches look really good. So the side profile is one strong design element for this car. It just looks butch from the side. I like that rising belt line. That is again a very nice design element. And then you've got to look at the wing mirrors. Nice, big, chunky wing mirrors. And this is not something that you see often. Turn blinkers that are vertical. And then if you take a look at the hood also has these prominent contours which are visible very clearly from the driver's seat. So that also gives you an excellent commanding view, and at the same time a good judgment when you're driving off the road or even on road for that matter in tight spaces. Then you have this big grille right here, simple yet effective wipers, and a large windscreen. You look at the top, you get these functional roof rails, and then we move to the rear of the car, which is another pretty angle for the GX. So one new thing that you will see with all new Lexus cars is that the Lexus spaced lettering theme that is replacing the Lexus logo. So instead of that, you have Lexus written nice and bold on all the cars now. So you'll see it on the LBX as well, it's on the LM as well. And down below you see the badging. This is the GX 550. Now, like I said, this is also the off-road trim, so you also get chunkier bumpers. The more luxury oriented trims, they get slightly sleeker bumpers front and rear. This has the more off-road focused bumpers, and this panel essentially gets removed when you want to put the big tow hook there to pull caravans, etc. Let me also show you the rear seat space. The space is really good. You don't get a sunroof for the second row, you only get it at the front. But I really like the cushioning that has been provided. The contouring is really nice. Getting 3 adults in here is not a problem at all, but there is that big transmission tunnel, so that is going to make life a little uncomfortable for the third passenger. But it's broad enough to get 3 passengers in here if you really need to do that. Now let's look at the front seats. The front seats have these green accents on them, and then the cushioning has been done quite soft because off-roading is a big focus for this vehicle. So when you are going off-roading and if you get thrown from side to side while being on the uneven terrain, they want the seats to be supportive, but at the same time they want the cushioning to be soft so that it doesn't hurt you in any way. And it really works. We've tried that today and it really works. These are electronically controlled seats, of course. There is massage functions available as well for the front as well as the second row occupants. And then let's take a look at the different controls that you get inside the car. So this is the mode selector. Let me just turn on the car. So you see the mode selector right here. So you have different driving modes. This is going to essentially, the MTS is going to give you different terrain modes to choose from. So the mode select is essentially going to let you cycle between these different modes. So you can see there's comfort, there's sport plus, and then there is the custom. If you go into settings, so you can set up the powertrain, you can set up the suspension, the steering, the air conditioning. Now if I were to click MTS and then make changes here, it is going to let me select between mud, sand, dirt, deep snow is also there, and then there is auto. So the auto will essentially gauge the kind of terrain that you're driving on and then make adjustments, changes to the drivetrain, optimize the drivetrain to essentially tackle the different terrain. So you're going to use this selector, and then these are the buttons that you're going to cycle between. These are for your on-road modes, these are for your off-road modes. Then there is a crawl mode as well. You can literally crawl over rocky terrain, over slushy terrain from 1 to 5 kilometers an hour. You can again select that using the mode selector when you engage the crawl mode. Now the engine is not running here, so I can't really show it to you, but that is something that we've tried and it works just well. So you don't have to use the accelerator or the brake. All you need to use is the steering wheel. So that is the other bit. Now this is the gear selector, and here you have the high 4, you have the 4 low, and then you have the diff locks. So that is what you use here. But like I said, just leaving it in the auto mode does most of the work really, really well. Now in terms of the steering, it's the typical Lexus steering with the typical Lexus controls. As again, even the switch gear out here, it's all typical Lexus elements. The fit and finish is really good. What I also like is the absolute straight lines, horizontal lines. The visibility, like I said, is excellent. You can see the 2 corners of the bonnet really well. All the big screens are now standard for Lexus. I don't remember the exact dimensions for the screen, so that is something you can get off the spec sheet, but you can see it here. It is easy to read, it is easy to navigate, and then you get this big digital instrumentation as well. And then typical off-road elements, you have the handles on both the A-pillars, you have the Mark Levinson system because Lexus. The door knobs are standard. These are not the push knobs that you get on the other Lexus cars. You get paddle shifters for shifting gears, etc. So in terms of the hardware, there's plenty to keep you happy both on the road and off the road as well. And powering the car is a 3.5 liter V6 engine. There is going to be a hybrid option as well going forward, which will retain that same 3.5 liter V6 but mate it with a hybrid powertrain. So this is the Lexus GX for you. I hope Lexus India brings it to the Indian market very soon. Currently, we only have the LX. The GX sits below the LX in the overall lineup, and I think this will be one perfect tool, one perfect SUV that Lexus needs to have in its India portfolio as well. It's really good. It's left us impressed on the off-road surface, and knowing how good it was on the off-road, I'm sure it is going to be equally good or even better on the road. It's going to be a typical Lexus in that sense. If you have any questions about this vehicle, put them in the comments below. The review is going to be off-road only, so I'll not be able to go back to the review and answer your questions, but I can always come back to the comment section and answer all the queries that you have about the GX.